She knew he would hurt her. He always had. But when his name lit up her screen, her breath caught, her hands trembled, and she answered anyway. It wasn't love. It was something more intense, more risky. And the worst part, she mistook it for love. Because the suffering felt so familiar, it seemed like home. This is the story no one shares. Not about a broken heart, but about an addiction. The kind of dependency that feels like an obsession, that masquerades as romanticism. But deep down, it's a woman losing herself in a man she can't possess or abandon. So, why does this happen? Why do women fall harder for the men who value them least? Why does her body crave what her mind knows is destroying her? What you're about to discover isn't friendly advice. It's an emotional battle. And once you understand it, you'll never see love the same way again. She told her friends it was love. That's what she believed. That's what she needed to believe. Because if it wasn't love, then what was it? Why did she spend hours staring at her phone, analyzing every message she didn't receive? Why did she miss him over and over again? For fading away, for breaking promises, for drawing her clothes only to vanish. Why did she dream of him at night? Why did she wake up restless? Why did she reread old messages as if they were treasures? It felt like love, but it didn't act like love. It didn't flourish. It didn't heal. It didn't build. It consumed. And that's the first warning sign no one mentions. Love shouldn't feel like crumbling. But it did, again and again. Do you see, this wasn't love at all? It was emotional dependency, and it's one of the most dangerous psychological threats a woman can fall into, because it dresses up as romance. But it works like a drug. She wasn't hooked on it. She was hooked on the emotion he awakened in her. That rush of dopamine when he responded quickly after days of silence. That surge of adrenaline when she saw his name, thinking he was gone for good. That synchronized low when he ignored her, and the false high of convincing herself this time would be different. This is the cycle, the uncertainty, the hope, the minimal reward. Repeat. Her nervous system wasn't reacting to love. It was responding to intermittent reinforcement. The same mechanism used in casinos, toxic relationships, and addictions. A psychological system where the reward is emotional chaos. And here's the cruel twist. The more chaotic it made her feel, the more her body mistook it for passion. That's why many women say, I can't explain it. There was something about him. What they really saying is, he triggered my nervous system in a way that felt like love, but in reality, it was trauma disguised as chemistry. True love brings calm. Addiction brings intensity, and in a world that exalts intensity, women often confuse the two until it's too late. He wasn't safe. He wasn't stable. He didn't offer consistency, kindness, or real commitment, but he had something else, something more potent, an emotional pull. The wrong men, the ones women can't let go of, share a pattern. They're not the strongest or the most attractive. They're not the richest or the most logical choice, but they bring something unique, something women feel before they understand it. They make them feel seen, but only in fleeting moments. They show depth, but only enough to intrigue them, never enough to stay. They disappear, and when they return, it's like breathing again. They set their imagination ablaze, and that imagination becomes addictive. These men aren't loved for who they are. They're loved for what they awaken in them. The struggle, the ecstasy, the fantasy. Carl Jung would call this man the shadow lover, a symbol of hidden, unconscious desire, part of the feminine psyche that craves danger, chaos, and raw intensity. He's the forbidden archetype, the unintegrated masculine energy she never met in real life, until now. He's also the architect, affectionate, but deceptive, inconstant, but fascinating. He never offers clarity, only contrasts. He builds hope only to tear it down. And finally, he's the chaotic masculine. He seduces with intensity but can't sustain presence. He offers passion, but not peace. When he's there, he consumes everything. When he's gone, he tears her apart. But here's the most unsettling truth. She doesn't fall for him. She falls for the emotional reflection he shows of her wounds. She sees herself through his unpredictability. She relives the abandonment she once overcame. She fights for his love, hoping to rewrite an old story, to win this time what she lost back then. And he doesn't even need to know what he's doing. Because many of these men don't manipulate intentionally. They're simply broken in ways that make them magnetic to the brokenness in others. His inconsistency keeps her nervous system on edge. His rejection makes her strive for his affection. And the more unattainable he is, the more valuable he seems. Not because of who he is, but because of how much she struggles to keep him. In reality, the wrong man is just a mirror reflecting the parts of her still seeking validation, still fearing they're not enough, still hoping that maybe this time she'll change him. But mirrors can't love. They only show what's hidden inside her. She doesn't stay because she's weak. She stays because, on a level deeper than logic, this chaos feels like home. What many call falling in love is, for her, falling into a pattern etched long ago, not by the man in front of her, but by the emotional blueprint left by childhood wounds. When a girl grows up receiving inconsistent love that comes and goes, love that must be earned, love that only arrives when she's perfect or pleasing, she doesn't learn to feel safe. She learns to become addicted to approval, addicted to struggle, addicted to almost being enough. And then, years later, she finds someone who, unknowingly, replicates that same emotional rhythm. A man who draws near and then pulls away, who praises her one day and ignores her the next, who makes her feel everything, and then, suddenly, nothing. And her nervous system doesn't see it as a warning. It sees it as familiar. Her mind says, this is dangerous. But her body says, this feels like love, because it remembers the peaks, and it's desperate to avoid the valleys. That's how trauma bonding begins. Every time he pulls away, she falls. Every time he returns, she soars. That unpredictable cycle, that emotional machine, produces dopamine, oxytocin, and cortisol in unstable waves. The same chemicals that fuel gambling addictions or drug cravings. She's not hooked on him. She's hooked on what her body generates in response to him. The silence becomes more potent than abuse. The tension is more seductive than calm. And the brief moments of connection, no matter how toxic the relationship is overall, they feel like winning a prize. But like any addiction, the reward becomes scarcer, and the effort to get it more extreme. And here's the cruel irony. The more she invests, the more tired she feels. Not because it works, but because her pain now has a higher cost. She tells herself, maybe I misunderstood him. Maybe if I love him better, he'll change. Maybe the problem is me. It's not his fault. She's not foolish. She's traumatized. That's why women don't stay when it makes sense. That's why logic doesn't break the addiction. Because it's not about love in general. It's about unresolved trauma seeking a different ending. Her subconscious believes if I make him love me, I'll prove I'm worthy of love. But what she doesn't see is that she's already worthy. She always has been. And the fact that she fights so hard to gain what should be given freely is proof of how deep the pain runs. Until that pain is acknowledged, felt, and healed, she'll keep mistaking emotional chaos for connection. She'll keep calling her trauma love and wondering why it always ends the same. It's easy to think smart women don't fall for the wrong men. That intelligence is armor against emotional chaos. That success, education, and self-awareness should shield her from suffering. But, in reality, it's often the brightest, most successful women who fall hardest, not because they're naive, but because they're trained to find meaning in complexity. They've learned to solve problems, decipher difficulties, and face challenges. So, when a man shows inconsistency, distance, or emotional coldness, they don't pull away, they lean in. Instead of seeing his behavior as a signal, they see it as an enigma, one they believe they can crack, if only they try hard enough. She tells herself, he's emotionally reserved, not incapable of love. If I'm patient, he'll open up. He acts this way because of his own trauma, and I get it. This creates an illusion of control. She believes that if she responds with enough empathy, effort, or understanding, she can fix the dysfunction. She intellectualizes the chaos instead of fleeing it. She rationalizes the pain instead of facing the truth. And every time she almost figures him out, every time he gives a glimpse of vulnerability, her mind sees progress while her soul keeps sinking. Why does it trap her? Deeper, smarter. Women aren't hooked on the person himself. They're hooked on the idea that they can save him, that their love is powerful enough to change him, that if they just understand him right, this time, it'll work. But love isn't a strategy, and chaos isn't a code to crack. You don't heal someone by setting yourself on fire just to keep them warm. You don't grow or fade for someone else. And sometimes, intelligence doesn't free you. It just gives you better excuses to stay trapped. He never said he loved her, but the way he looked at her felt like he did. He never promised a future, but in those talks, when the world was calm and she let her guard down, he reflected all the dreams she was afraid to voice. She thought he saw her, but what he really did was mirror her. This is one of the most powerful, unconscious tactics of the wrong man. Without being aware, without malice, but with an almost predatory instinct, he becomes a canvas. And whatever she craved, Emotional depth. He paints just enough of it on himself to seem like the answer, but only for a moment. At first he's curious, present. He asks questions no one else asks. He listens, or at least pretends to. He shows flashes of vulnerability that feel intimate, but they're not intimate, they're empty. Those moments are scarce, but powerful, because they're unpredictable. One day he texts like she's the only woman in the world. The next, silence. One day it feels like a soul connection. The next is cold and unreachable. This is intermittent reinforcement, the same psychological principle that makes gambling addictive. You never know when the reward will come, so your brain chases it harder. She doesn't fall for him, she falls for the emotional mirage he created. A mirage pieced together from fragmented attention, vague promises, and tacit suggestions. The version of him that existed only in moments, but seemed more real than anything else. This mirage isn't just seductive, it's designed. He asks for what he wants and gives just enough for her to project the rest. She fills the gaps with her own hopes. She builds a future from fragments. And when she starts to give up, slowly, subtly, he doesn't let her go. He makes her fight harder. Because now it's not just about him, it's about proving that mirage was real. What keeps her trapped isn't his love, it's the lack of clarity. The gaps, the almost moments, the pain of what could be if only he let it happen. And so, she stays, not for what he offers, but for what she still hopes he might. She's not hooked on his presence. She's hooked on his emotional shadow, on the idea of who he could be if only he chose to. But he won't, because that man never existed. She just needed to believe he did. Finally, she meets someone good. He shows up on time, listens, remembers the details, responds without delay, doesn't play games, doesn't vanish, doesn't make her doubt, and still, she feels nothing. No spark, no chaos, no gaps. Just calm, the kind she's not used to. So she tells him, he's nice, but something's missing. There's no chemistry. Maybe I'm not ready, but that's not the truth. The truth is her nervous system doesn't know how to feel safe. So, when it finally does, she interprets that calm as boredom. The wrong man creates emotional roller coasters, highs and lows, that feel intense, addictive, alive. Every message is a rush, every silence an abandonment. It keeps her activated, alert, obsessed. But the right man, the one who brings stability and consistency, doesn't trigger the trauma cycle. He doesn't mirror her childhood pain. He doesn't challenge her sense of worth. He's just there. And that should feel like love. But instead, it feels strange. And strange can feel wrong, even when it's right. This is the cruel effect of emotional conditioning. When you've been taught to chase love through pain, peace feels empty. She thinks she's losing passion, but what she's really losing is the adrenaline, the chemical chaos the wrong man triggered in her mind and body. And since she's used to mistaking that chaos for connection, anything outside it feels lifeless. But love, true love, shouldn't feel like surviving. It shouldn't spike your cortisol or steal your sleep. It should be quiet, present, safe. And until she heals the addiction to emotional instability, she'll keep walking away from what she says she wants, because it doesn't hurt enough to feel real.